Hello everyone and welcome back to Recall Gaming, and this is the Metal Gear Solid Integral Playthrough, or Walkthrough rather, I keep messing that up. Walkthrough Part 4 I believe? Yeah, I want to say part 4, I'm sure it is Part 4. Shows how well I track these things and how professional I am. But that's the intro I'm going to go with. But in this part we're going to do lots of action. We've just escaped capture and then torture, and now we've got to do the almighty task of getting all the way back where we came from and carrying on and going in with the main objective of destroying Metal Gear. Now, to start this off with, I'm going to go to the room I tried to do earlier, and I then cut the whole sequence out when I realised I didn't have the resources to do it. And you'll also see me pick up some C4 here, because when something's happen in the story, the items in this this floor or other rooms repopulates, so you can get some C4 and some bullets here. I mean, I don't think you're ever really going to struggle for bullets too much in this game. The game's more than generous enough. Just be careful, because there's trapdoors everywhere, which seems really counterintuitive when you've got guards walking around here who are your own men. But hey, that's how Foxhound rolls, or the US military. For what it's worth, you can probably skip all of this if you're not to. I did this playthrough very much in the spirit of trying to get everybody through it, if you're playing this for the first time and struggling on a section. So in doing so, I decided to try and get as many items as I possibly could, just to help you out the most. Make sure you throw a chaff grenade here, because there's a lot of sneaky cameras, and you're not going to see them on your first time through. It's a really bastard thing to do, because they're everywhere. You really can't do a right lot here. You're going to have to just throw chaff and just go for it, because they're everywhere. The other room, I believe, just has the digital camera. So, and there might be... Is there a cardboard box in there, possibly? No, I don't think there's a cardboard box. There's just the camera. I'm thinking of MGS 2, I think, which has a similar setup in the parcel room. So we've already snuck past this guard many times. Easy pattern. Just wait for him to turn around and then hide by them boxes. And then when he does that exact same maneuver again, we just slip past. And we're never coming back to the armory again. And I'm glad, because it wasn't too fun having to continuously backtrack to this place. So there you go. So we can start the long road, as it was called in Rambo. The main theme, the long road. It is a long road back to the communications tower. And I'm trying to think back to when I first played this game. I think this... I can't tell you if this is the moment where I just started really falling in love with this game, or I just went... I think I was 8 years old when I first played this, and I still think it's the first game I ever properly finished without using, I used to play just Medal of Honor back in the day. Medal of Honor was my jam. And Medal of Honor Frontline, that is, not the original ones on PS2. I didn't actually own them. I do own them now, because I got lent them. And they never wanted them back, by the way. I'm not one of those people that gets something lent and never returns it. I think everyone had horror stories of those. It's becoming less and less a thing as we don't have physical content anymore. That's my phone. Very unprofessional. We'll just mute that. Yeah. So, as I say, that's becoming less and less a thing. But yeah, I own Medal of Honor not until years later, the original one, and it's unfortunately a bit scratched, the copy I've got. So half the time the levels don't load. So I've never to this day finished the original Medal of Honor, which is a shame. Or Underground, and I'd love to do that at some point. But trying to get your hands on Medal of Honor 1, the 1999 original, or Medal of Honor Underground, is an undertaking and a half. Really frustrating. These rooms, by the way, I'll just cut off. If you're not... Just follow what I'm doing on screen if you're not sure about these rooms. This room's always the trickiest one, because you can't just go around and shoot anybody, because your guns are... Nanomachines don't let you. That's about as the extent of nanomachines in this game. And as I say, I couldn't get past this guard without interacting with him, so I did have to break my own rule and knock on the truck. But last time I'm coming through here, so last time you're going to see that little imperfection. But as I was saying, mainly just played Medal of Honors and the early Call of Duties on console. PS2 we're talking here. So I think Metal Gear Solid was the first game I ever finished properly, and it was just this whole... It was the whole experience. Obviously it played great, had these great boss fights, and this story, and the way the story, goes up and down, its peaks and valleys, and the pacing of this game isn't great at times. MGS3 is kind of a very similar game, but just 10 times better in my opinion, due to the pacing more than anything. And it's at this point where it just changes a bit. It kind of ditches stealth for a little bit, and it just goes for these all-out action set pieces that I wasn't expecting, and it just drags you all in for this romp of a ride, which is just brilliant. And it's funny, because now I don't particularly like the action set pieces, because it isn't the game's strength. point, and it becomes very set piece driven. And they're still quite fun. I don't have the same disdain for them that some people do, but the game takes an interesting change here. And by the way, this is the most important item you will get in the game is on B2. So make sure you come here when you have the level 6 card, and you can get the body armor, because body armor reduces damage. I'm not sure by how much. I want to say half, but that could be wrong. So make sure you come back here, go and treat yourself to the body armor, because boy, you're going to need it. It saves you a lot of hassle on any difficulty, even easy. So make sure you commit to getting that. But as I say, I was all in for this ride because of Metal, having these action set pieces, because I expected the game to just be stealth all out. And I remember something similar, but not to any great extent as this. But I remember distinctly Sniper Elite V2, because I thought that game was going to be quite a dull, for the most part, sort of, just a stealth sniping game. I didn't think the game would ever take much variation. Then the second level came around, and you ended up being pinned under a lot of enemy fire at pretty close range for a sniper game, and you really had to use your wits about you and escape the. It's like a not quite an underground facility. It's with the tunnel. I do have a Sniper Elite V2 Sniper Elite difficulty walkthrough on the channel, so I can't remember the name of it. The worst part about doing that, of uploading that walkthrough, was trying to spell the mission names, because they're all locations in Germany and in German writing, and it was quite a, putting things like Kreuzberg headquarters was quite the challenge. I had to just Google and write stuff down and copy it word for word, and then find out I'd spelt it wrong. So that was all kinds of fun. But yeah, as I say, sometimes when you think a game's going to be quite dull and just the same pattern, it can be quite a surprise when it goes actiony, like I say this game does. And the action parts of this game get a bit of flack, because the game starts getting a little bit cheap, I must admit, in the second half of the game. To me, it's all right now, because I've played this game a hell of a lot. I know where gun turrets are. I know where sneaky stuff's going to be, and I know where all the chaff grenades are that I need, and the stun grenades. But if you're not playing the game optimally as you need it sort of to be, if you don't get a lot of stun grenades from the start of the game up to now, you're kind of going to be a bit fucked. I mean, you can certainly do it, but it's going to be more interesting than it needs to be. And I think that is, something that Kojima got a lot better at as time went on. I mean, Metal Gear Solid 2, hell of a lot better. I mean, the action set pieces, similar sort of flaws at times, because... Oh, the cough medicine, make sure you take that, because Snake had been sneezing. I'd have missed that, because I haven't got any game audio on when I'm doing commentary. But, I've forgotten, I've lost my train of thought entirely there. I was talking about action set pieces. Yeah, Metal Gear Solid 2 is slightly better, probably because you can use the trank gun, but they're still a little bit flawed, because they're enforced combat scenarios, and I think one of the big upgrades of MGS3, and I'll mention this when I play through the 1, 2, and 3 games on the hard difficulties, you can immediately tell how much better MGS3 is, in my opinion, because the action set pieces, they're not forced combat. You have to engage with enemies and knock them out, or tranquilize them and stuff, but you're not forced into an alert mode. MGS3 is the first Metal Gear Solid game that you can do no alerts in. MGS1 has forced alerts, MGS2 has forced alerts. I think MGS2 has 2. You're going to have 2 alerts no matter what you do. It might even count as 3. There's one on the tanker, and I don't know if it counts as 2 separate ones in the plant section when you're fighting with Solid Snake. As I say, I'm not sure. I only recently did that game, no alerts, for the first time ever, back in November 2023, I think. I did that on hard difficulty without using the trank gun. That was a great time. I thoroughly enjoyed doing that. It was a hell of a challenge, but yeah, a lot of fun. And I'm thinking in terms of other stuff for the channel, I'm thinking in regards to Metal Gear, I'm thinking of doing, sort of replacing the recall files with something called the VR files. For those that don't know, Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2 feature a lot of VR missions, which are they're just training missions and challenges, basically, but they're set in this virtual world. And I think they could be a lot of fun, because there's loads of them. We could do it like a weekly episode, like the recall files. To replace that series that was, had good success. I enjoyed doing that, and one day I will bring it back when I can find a good list of stuff to play. But I think the VR files could potentially be interesting. So let me know if you're interested in seeing something like that once a week, just like my struggle to do all the VR missions, because I think there's trophies on both games for that. So yeah, I think we might have a look at that. But we're going to come up here to communications tower, and it is going to get all actiony soon. So if you're not too familiar with this game, or you just have a brief idea about Metal Gear being this stealth thing, you're going to be taken a bit backward in a few moments. And I've just noticed that this is the first edit in the video I've done. This is the first cutscene or codec call. And that's 10 minutes of uninterrupted gameplay. And for Metal Gear Solid 1, must be a bit of a rarity. I have to say, the longest moments of gameplay in this game are unfortunately backtracking, which is a real shame. As I say, it's quite funny because MGS 1 and 2 are so codec heavy, constantly getting calls from the Colonel or whoever. It's Colonel in MGS 2 as well. And then you go to MGS 3, and the few times you do get a radio call, it is so out of nowhere. But it takes you such surprise because it just never happens. And it's a shame because I think, and it's not a shame actually, the radio calls to me are so much better in MGS 3 because there's so many fun optional ones. But because they're optional and I don't have to commit to like finding them all the time, or have to listen to them all the time, I actually like the cast a lot more and got to like them at my own pace. So a big improvement over 3 there. Little trick here, guys. Throw a stun grenade. Oh, did I throw a grenade actually early? Yeah, throw a grenade because this will... You're meant to trigger this security camera through the game. But if you throw a grenade like this and trigger the alert yourself, it actually delays the spawning of the 2 guards behind you, and it gives you a good chance to go up here without taking any damage for a while. So stun grenade is the only weapon you need here, by the way. I cooked this way too early. But the stun grenade in this game is great because it affects everybody on the screen. It affects everybody on the map, basically. I think I threw 2 here too early, so don't take my advice. I might have even thrown 3 too early. No, there's the first guy there. So I take a hit. I tap R1 because it makes Snake go up a little bit quicker up the stairs. But make sure you're throwing stun grenades relatively regularly now. And try not to run into the enemies too much because they will just hit you with the rifle butt. And that's just going to knock you down. Can't really dodge past enemies, but that's probably the best you're going to get. But rather than doing that tapping R1, I really should have just been throwing stun grenades here now, rather than... I'm doing it pretty well here. This is probably one of the best times I've ever done this section in the game. I mean, that was a lucky break there, because that guy was about to hit me with a rifle butt at the FAMAS. But I just got there in the nick of time. But I know the first time playing this, and I was like, oh my god, what is this? Like, I was loving it, firing the FAMAS and everything. But man, it was like, what has the game turned into? And this tower, man, I mean, it's so tall. Probably like the tallest thing I've ever climbed in a game. I wouldn't have minded this being closer to the end of the game, actually, because I do love when a game has like a long climb at its ending. I just think there's something quite... it quite parallels your own journey that you get into the end of the game, and now you're doing a long climb, a climb to the finish, basically. So I've always enjoyed that in the game. I remember Metro Exodus. No, not Metro Exodus. What was the first one called? Metro 2033 did something quite like that, where you had to climb this big tower to do this radio broadcast or beacon or something like that. And there was something about climbing this tower to end the game. I don't know. It's just it kind of paralleled my own journey, I feel like. So yeah, quite enjoyed that. But yeah, that's one of the hardest action set pieces in the game, and I did that really well. Bear in mind, guys, I'm not using rations anymore, so... I was really impressed with that. I could have done with... If I'd saved more stun grenades, the game could have been a lot more simpler for me. And so make sure you pick up the rope, though. That's the important thing. If you don't pick up the rope, I don't know what happens, because I never haven't done. I think you'd be pretty unlucky to not pick up the rope. But yeah, equip the rope, Snake will automatically send himself over. And I think you press... I think it's circle here to get Snake repelling. But this is what I mean. This game just goes... full on like Die Hard. It's just full blown action non-stop, and you've got Liquid chasing you in a helicopter, and the parallels to Siphon Filter will be coming up very shortly, which we'll certainly talk a lot about when I do those 2 playthroughs back to back. But it's worth listening to the Colonel's codec call because he tells you the controls. But basically, you want to be jumping away from the helicopter's fire and away from the burst of steam. That's essentially all there is to this. Again, this was probably one of the better times I've done this sequence. And when I did try to do the game without dying, video series that you can check on the channel, this bit had me really nervous because you can't use any rations here. So on the harder difficulty, I mean, look at the damage from behind. It is quite seismic, You can tell the steam isn't too bad, but the machine gun fire just absolutely wrecks you. As I really nearly mess it up at the end. It's annoying taking any machine gun fire because it takes such a chunk of the health. And yeah, it's quite tricky. So I tried doing this by using stun grenades because you can essentially beat these three guys by throwing a stun grenade, throwing another one, and running past them, which is quite handy because they actually despawn. But it wasn't working, so I had to do this long-winded method of using the Nikita rocket launcher, which I don't particularly enjoy doing because it feels cheap and it takes absolutely forever. But unfortunately, that's just the nature of what I had to do. Ideally, I wouldn't have done it this way. But it is what it is. It's the safest way. So in terms of a walkthrough, it's the best method I can actually teach you. And I was trying to think actually, I've never got Big Boss on I've never got Big Boss on any of the MGS games ranking system. But MGS 1 is by far the easiest apparently because you can use the stealth suit and the bandana, and you can do it on any difficulty as well. So it's something that I might try and do one time. I'm not worried about being able to beat the game quick enough. I'm pretty confident in my ability to finish this game quick. I think it's the amount of kills you can do that's tricky. But I know lots of like exploits that I could do to get past a lot of enemies. Like, you know, when you fight with Meryl, just don't shoot them, just flip them and just like try and let her shoot them. So that could work quite well. But you have to kill a lot of enemies in this game forced. Like, you don't actually have to kill these three, but I'm thinking on the elevators you've got to kill a lot of guys. So, plus all the boss fights. It's a lot of kills that you've got to like not do to get that big boss rank. And here's something that's completely random, and I don't know if this is just... When I first played this game, I always thought the snow looked white, but now I've played it on my PS3 and PS5. The snow looks... Oh, that was the worst thing I could have done. Oh man, I nearly got killed then for that. But the snow looks like blue to me now, and I don't know if it always looks like that, but the old like 4x3 telly that I would have played this game on back in 2005 would have probably looked... The snow would have looked potentially white. So here is a simple bit of we are blocked, so hit the elevator, it won't work, so you got to try and go all the way down through the stairs. Because Liquid has set a little trap for us, because he's a prick like that. That's just his style. And I talked about how you're going to want stun grenades. Now you're going to need chaff grenades, because the game's going to have loads of gun turrets. And if you don't have chaff grenades, or lots of rations, then... Sorry, might have to restart the game. Yeah, as I say, the game's a little cheap here. If you've played it a few times and you're like me and you know what you're doing, it's alright. But if you're playing on easy, it's alright. But anything higher, you're kind of screwed. Unfortunately, yeah, staircase is out, so we've got to head up. And we have the famous Love Can Bloom on the Battlefield cutscene. Obviously not featured here because all cutscenes are skipped. And that's sort of an interesting debate I'm having actually in regards to the series that I'm doing. And for those that don't know, I've mentioned I'm going to do MGS 1, 2 and 3 on their hardest difficulties, and Siphon Filter 1, 2 and 3 on hard mode, which is like a secret button combination you got to press on the menu to unlock, which I've never tried before, which I think could be interesting. Now, cutscenes in Siphon Filter, including them, is easy because the longest cutscene's probably like 2 minutes, if that. But I don't know whether to include cutscenes for Metal Gear Solid 1, 2 and 3. Obviously, they can get quite long, and there could be potential issues with when the video cuts out. But I know the games very well and would probably be able to avoid that for the most part. So maybe we could do that. But I don't know, it's an interesting one to do. I kind of want to watch MGS3's cutscenes because it has been a while since I'll watch them. And with the remake upcoming, I want to be like... If there's any differences, I want to be able to know straight away. Now, to be honest with you, I'd probably know anyway. So I might just skip the cutscenes because I really do know. I know MGS3 cutscenes like the back of my hand. So I could probably leave it and be able to know, because I just want to be able to notice any differences in the remake, basically. That's because I'm just a nerd like that. But yeah, kind of interested to see how that MGS3 remake works. I'm kind of curious if the improved melee system will ruin the game. And along with being able to use the camouflage without the menu, like, is that not going to make the game potentially too easy? I don't know. Probably it won't actually, because I mean, you could change your camouflage at any moment and it was paused. So having a quick menu while the game's still on will potentially just cut down on tedium. I don't think it's going to make the game easier. So that probably won't be an issue at all. So I don't know how that camouflage is going to work. I don't think you'll have access to all of them. I imagine you have some favourites in a menu and you can quickly swap between them. So Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Really curious to see what that's like. I'm happy to see that Snake versus Monkey mode has returned as well because I loved playing that as a kid. And hopefully the opening codec conversation between Snake and the Colonel's there because he mentions Sam Fisher and Gabe Logan. So he asks, why can't you get one of those guys? So that would be cool to see that return. But anyway, we'll talk about Sam Fisher another time because that's an interesting conversation to have. But now we have the Hind boss fight. I used to really enjoy this one as a kid, but as time goes on and on, I like this boss fight less and less. I think just because I find there's not much variation to it, because once you know what you're doing, it's simple enough. Just use this little like power unit, I don't know what to call it, as cover, and just consult with the radar to look for the purple dot and just avoid it and just hit back when you can. There's not much more to it. I did actually die quite a few times trying to do this though, because I say, I'm not using any rations, and as you can see, I'm pretty low at this point. But this boss fight can take a long time, and there are times where you hit it, and you may think I'm not being very aggressive here, but when I tried this boss fight, I was hitting the Hind early with the Stinger, and it wasn't registering any damage, and it was definitely hitting. So it's almost like there's like a time proximity to when you can hit the Hind or something like that. I'm not entirely sure how it works. I think MGS2's Harrier fight, which is just pretty much a copy for this, is actually way better. I think that fight's awesome. Whereas I think this one's a little dull. Yeah, I think the fight gets easier as it goes on because Liquid Snake starts doing some really strange tactics, like trying to hide with the helicopter. But when you got the Stinger missile that can see him at all points, it really isn't like too much to worry about. But I think what makes this boss fight a little tedious is just how little damage you do. You know, you do way more damage to Metal Gear with a Stinger missile than you do to the Hind. But I'm certainly glad about that. Because you want Metal Gear fights to be a challenge, but I wouldn't enjoy it if they were all bullet sponges. Use Metal Gear Solid 5 Salamthropus. Salamthropus? That's how you say it, yeah. Use that as an example. That's a good example of, you know, a boss fight Metal Gear that isn't too good. The spectacle of it's amazing, and the open areas, in theory, should be good. And being able to call in your own helicopter to do damage is all kinds of fun, but it just takes a lot of damage off memory. And I don't remember there being much else to it other than that. But I haven't played through Metal Gear Solid 5 more than once. It's the only Metal Gear I've ever done that. And in my head I was always like, oh, I'll play it again. But we're now 10 years, nearly 10 years on from release, and I still haven't replayed it. I think the fact that you don't have multiple save files has always put me off, because I'd always want to play it from scratch and do it all again. Because you can replay levels at any time, but the world has changed with the dynamic difficulty, with enemies getting tougher, so you're never playing the same game twice. So I think that's been a major put-off for me. Which is a big shame, because I think of... I'm getting tired here, doing all this talking. But I think whenever I play Ground Zeroes, it's always the same as I did the first time. The only difference is I have some weapons that at the start, which I have a choice to use or not, but you know, guards aren't any tougher or anything like that. It's both a pro and con, because it means that the level's always a bit dull. Oh, by the way, once you've done half the health and this cutscene happens, just hide behind the power unit and do it the second time it happens at the end of the fight, and you'll be fine. But, you know, I think modes like that, they're better off just being behind a menu. You can either choose to have that dynamic difficulty if you want, or leave it as it is base, so you can learn how it is at the first time you play it. I don't know, it's interesting food for thought, really. But as I say, in terms of this boss fight, there's not really much more for me to say, other than just hit it with a Stinger and hide when it fires. You're never going to beat it. Never try and second guess the Hind like there. Just let him do his thing and you'll get an easy shot in a moment. You're going to have to be pretty unlucky to get caught in a loop where you can't fire back, because the Hind gives you plenty of opportunities. Like that, where he just waits for a hit. But yeah, this fight is so similar to the Harrier one, but I do think it's a lot better than MGS2. I think the big similarity between them is that they are a bit time consuming. The MGS2 Harrier fight on Extreme and European Extreme can be so heartbreaking, because you've got to be pretty perfect for like 10 to 15 minutes. And, you know, one cock up and a lot of the Harrier's attacks, like the rockets, just kill you instantly. The Hind doesn't really have that. It's only got the machine guns, I think, and the rockets right at the end, which are a doozy to dodge. So it's all a lot easier in this one. But the machine guns do massive damage. So despite me all saying that, don't get cocky. So, you know, take it easy. Or rather, don't take it easy. That's a total wrong thing to say. Ignore what I'm saying. Yes, off-the-cuff commentary from Recall Gaming. Not planned, not prepared, if you couldn't tell. But we've... I was going to say we've nearly got the hind down, but he's still got plenty of life. But yeah, he's doing his hiding tactic now, where he'll hide, you know, like hide under the roof of the tower. But you could just see her with the Stinger missile. It's so funny. And I think if this was MGS2, you could probably try and do a bank shot, because you could do... Using the Stinger in the second game is a lot more fun. You can it seems to fire a lot quicker and it's more fluid. So if you want to like try and do that bank cool shot, you can really do it. But there's no such luck with this game. It's very much just you fire it, it goes straight, keep locked on, let go. When you fight in Metal Gear, there's absolutely nothing to it because the distance is very short. So the minute you fire, you're pretty much hitting, you know, Metal Gear. One thing I didn't know about that boss fight is you can actually snipe Liquid in the second half of it, if you want, because the cockpit gets exposed for the second phase of the fight. So you can use the sniper rifle. I mean, it'd be bloody hard because you can't move with the sniper rifle, and the minute the rockets start firing, you're going to get damaged. But it's a really cool little neat thing about Metal Gear Solid, the kind of stuff that you don't discover until decades after the game comes out. But in good news, we've nearly got the Hind to as little health as we do. And I think one of the cool things of not using rations is you kind of feel like you beat the boss properly because the boss doesn't have rations, if that makes sense. It's why Devil May Cry, I think, is so much more rewarding if you don't use health items, because you beat a boss, like, legitimately. I mean, I think this game's got some similarities to DMC1, especially with the repeated boss fights, but in fairness, you don't fight any bosses more than twice, and they are typically very different. Sniper Wolf's the only one that's vaguely similar, really, or is the same fundamentally. Vulcan Raven, one time is in the tank, the other time it's actually Vulcan Raven running about and trying to give you difficulty. So, yeah, big difference. But we've nearly got here. I mean, the next part of this series is going to be pretty action-y based as well, but not as much as this one. This has been all-stop, non-stop action. The 30-minute mark is just about not hit. So these parts have been consistent length. I mean, the boss fights have been the least interesting part of doing this series because then there's nothing different to it with the integral alternate round. You know, they don't have different patterns or attacks or anything like that, which is fine. That would have been a lot of work. All this thing is the Japanese re-release, really, so I didn't expect too much. Just having different guard routines is something quite unique, because as I say, none of the other Metal Gears have that. But I think we're one hit away now, guys, so I think we can start cheering shortly. Especially when the last hit's going to be an easy one, where he just comes up and reveals himself. But that's what makes this boss fight so long, because you're just waiting for Liquid to get on with it. So we're waiting. The sound of the Stinger lock-on pierces our ears. And there we go. One last hit. Bang. I take a hit for my troubles. But you have to be careful because he can still kill you. But the fight is now over. So just hide where I am and you've done it. Fight done. And you can tick another boss fight off. Another health upgrade for Snake. And you can start cheering even more. Because we're getting closer and closer to the end of the game. I'd say we're definitely past the halfway point now, but yeah, Snake somehow doesn't die from that. But unfortunately for Liquid, it is his end. Yeah, it's one of my favourite cutscenes, the one after, because he's just there shouting, "Come on, fly!" It's like, no mate, that ain't flying anywhere, that's destroyed. But yeah, to wrap up, I hope you enjoyed this part of the Metal Gear Solid Integral Alternate Round walkthrough. We did plenty of bosses, and we're moving on now to fighting Sniper Wolf again. So, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.